Hello, my name's David Skvor, artist and author of the book, The Trinity of Art. Last episode, called Wild Ride, I think I left you hanging and I felt pretty bad about that. So instead of being a wild ride, I think it was more of a bumpy ride. So today, I'm going to revisit that and try and let you down gently and go through that theory of abstraction that I use, or how I apply it, from beginning to end, and I'll go into every intricacy that I can see in this painting that struck a chord with me, results I tried to get, and there's a lot going on there, so I'll try and beat the egg timer. Now, last episode I presented a mathematical theory, and some of you are going to scratch your head and say, well, it didn't really make sense, and but can I have the formula? And I thought about it and I thought, I'm no good at algebra. I said, I'm going to give you the formula. I have written it down. So, as you know with algebra, and this is where it lost me when I was a kid, they replace numbers with letters. So for me, I just lost it. But I'm going to present my algebra to you using letters instead of numbers. So this is the formula. Here it comes. I've written it in the book. All right. Art equals observation plus analysis and inquiry multiplied by sensitivity and application divided by experimentation, adventure and courage, all based on the square root, the sum of all things. Do you want me to read that again? You can write this down if you like. Art equals observation plus analysis and inquiry multiplied by sensitivity and application divided by experimentation, adventure and courage, all based on the square root, the sum of all things. That's the formula. You're most welcome. You put it in your recipe book, you can have it. All right, this painting here today that I'm going to use to demonstrate these processes that I use is called Still Life with Brett. Now, Brett was the model, a male model I've known for years, and I called it a still life, and I think there's a paradox of terms in my head anyway. When we do a bowl of fruit or a vase of flowers, they call that still life. To me, I think it's still death. I mean, all the objects have been cut off from life. So I almost feel that a model holding a pose is more apt to be called a still life, living being. All right, one of my quirky intricacies. All right, so let's break this down from how it all happened on the day. So I go to drawing. The model strikes a pose, and once again, as I hinted at the other day, sometimes to loosen up and warm up, we do 1 minute poses. So the model hold that pose for a minute, then shift this way, shift that way. So you get 5 1 minute poses over 5 minutes. And the idea is to loosen people up so they don't tighten up and focus on something, so that they get the essence of what the model's presenting and try and get that down. So in a way, it's abstraction in itself, and it's paring away what we expect to get out of a drawing. So we're just focusing on getting the bones. This was the actual drawing I did that day. So 5 minutes of work. I've mentioned before, there's the moment of conception. Often when I draw or go to drawing, I'll finish a drawing or make some marks on paper, we'll call it, and I know that that's going to be a painting. I go home, say, that's a painting right there, and I'll put it in my folio and pick it up later when I've got time and it'll become a painting. So somehow I know I have to immortalise that image in paint. This was the drawing. Brett, 17th of the 9th, 2019. That's my signature. So there it is. Boom, boom, boom. Now while they have a break in between that for the next set of poses. I got out my coloured pencils straight away, knowing that this was going to be a painting. I've drawn them in with the coloured pencil, and then I've done some shading. So already my mind was saying, I'm going on with this. There's something here. All right, so what have we got? Obviously, and so I'll try and break it down. And it's not a very complex drawing, I suppose, but basically that was the model's head, and he might have been tilted this way. And when I draw, I try and get the line of the body. So if someone's expressing themselves like that, it's like, boom, you know. So that was the first pose. 1 minute, all I got out of it was that and that. Next pose was over here, and I've tried to pick up the line of the body, how he flowed. And obviously another 1, 2, how is it? 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 poses. I thought there was 5. Doesn't matter. So that ended up the body. When I got home, I thought, and at that time, I was really working on ellipses. Now, in my book, I'll tell you, I've stated that circles are quite easy to draw because they have a reference point, which is the start and finish. It ends up the same spot, doesn't matter where you start and finish. Easy on the eye. If it's right, it's right. If it's wrong, it's wrong. But when you're doing an ellipse, the mind tries to evaluate its trueness. And I've written a little note, or a quote. I quote myself from the book where I say about ellipses, because it's a pretty serious subject. A circle perfectly painted poses no challenge to the eye once completed, unless, of course, for any imperfections. Whereas an ellipse challenges the eye to make an evaluated assessment of its trueness in relation to its axis. An ellipse rotating in the white space cannot be allowed to wobble, or it will lose its line. You might think, well, what's he on about? And you get a push bike. You've got the wheel on it. If it gets a buckle in it, you can't fix it. You try anything, hit it this way, hit it that way, it's buggered. An ellipse is the same. If we imagine it, an ellipse is actually just a circle, but it's been put on its side. So we lose that reference point. Where's start and finish? And the eye can't make an assessment because it's not flat like that. So obviously there's an axis that runs through it. So this would be coming forward and that would be going back. So all the way around, it has to be perfect, because as soon as there's a wobble in it, the eye will know and party's over. So, probably blowing smoke, but this is quite a challenging exercise in getting them correct. So, it went really well for me. It was something I was working on at the time, a discovery to me as well. Okay, so what did I do with the painting? The drawing. I said, okay. I said, this is a bowl of fruit, or it's a flower, the model. So I ended up making this line right through here and that one through there, as if it was a vase. You know, you have a vase and it widens at the top and you put your flowers in. So that's where my mind's picked up on that. And a lot of this stuff must happen in your subconscious. So you don't know why or how, but we're all affected by things in life and we relate to things. So that's what I saw. Now I've used silver, a metallic paint in the acrylic system that I use, because I thought, well, I've got a white background, so the closest thing I can get to glass on a white background would be silver. And I think it worked really well here. The mind goes, yeah, I'm happy with that. As you'll notice down here, I've made it very, 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 very thin. Also down here, and that's all hand painted, by the way. As you know, glass gets thin. Ting. So it gives that impression. Across the bottom here, I've drawn a very, very straight line. Having done all this, wasn't quite balanced, wasn't quite earth. Now remember one of my episodes I said to you, when you draw a straight line, it must express itself. It must have sensitivity. And you say, oh, it's just a dead straight line. But this is a great example of that. All these shapes are rather organic, but this straight line seems to pull it all together, give it that, I don't know, it earths it all. But the line itself and these two straight lines feel very sensitive. Like they don't feel like a hard edge. The glass, it got feeling. So that sort of, for me, was something I thought, the painting told me what it had to do. You've got to do that. And once it feels right, it's right. Yeah, as I was saying, if it's right, it's right. Going on a bit more about that, as I say, when you must put feeling into a straight line. Same with all these other lines. You look at them, and there's something I'll point out to you, that they all maintain the same thickness throughout, except in a few circumstances where, say, I've feathered it off here a bit, and this is thin. And for the point of the argument, for them, it needed to be that way. But I've found through my work, by experimenting, sometimes to the point of failure, if I allow the lines, or if I try to alter the thickness to put in expression, somehow the lines become organic, too organic, and they want to speak for themselves. And then they start to push me around. Now my job's to push them around. I put expression into them. It's a bit like, instead of being the web, they become the spider. So being an artist, you become a bit of a bully. Nothing's allowed to happen on there unless I let it happen or make it happen. All right, getting a bit just going off onto a tangent somewhere. These little shapes here. Now, as I was saying to you, in life things sort of ring a bell for you, or they've got their own feeling. And you know when you get a glass jar, and they usually have a thicker bottom so they don't tip over, or a glass vase. Some of them on the bottom have like these big curvy bobbles. Well, basically that's all that is. So that should be on the bottom of the glass, but I've put it up here. To me, I can see that. I don't know, like if you can pick up on it, but to me, it had to be there. I've used that line to earth things, but really that's the bottom. So that's possibly how abstraction works. You take something from here and put it there, or you alter its positioning, or what it, I don't know, what it's meant to focus on. Okay, these bits here, I painted them in gold, but what they are basically is the gold leaf on glass. They often have patterns and things. Well, basically that's as simple as that. That's what it is. But the interesting thing about it, these are all forward, and that would be representational of them being on the outside of the glass. There's no connection of them with any other thing. Everything else runs behind, basically. So they're the sort of things you have to do. Where were we? Yeah, the blue. This bit here is water. Now, it was quite challenging that, because it was very hard to get water. You know, when you see water inside a vase, it's not like water's clear. So I had to keep diluting the blue. So it's almost nearly grey. But that's that sort of watery look. You know it's water, even though it's sort of clear, but it's not really like fresh air clear. So that, I'm really happy with that. Once again, it doesn't go through to the bottom, it doesn't come up here, doesn't need to finish it, because it just doesn't need to. It's already spoken for itself. Now up here, sort of in the flowers themselves, we'll call them flowers, I put green, broke it down again as light as I could. And that's representation of, you know how you have a stalk that goes into the vase? Well, a bit higher than it should be below there, but that works up there. And why does it work? And in my mind, I thought, you know, when you look into water and the stem comes down, but it seems to be refracted out, it doesn't go straight through. The water pushes it somewhere. So I pushed it up there. Now, as I said, these ellipses ended up, for me, I used a different colour for each one, and that's quite representational of flowers. You know, they come in all colours. But colours to me have their own emotional attachment, but that's another episode which I'll deal with later. But in the end, it almost looks like, to me, in my mind's eye, a tulip. You know how tulips have got that sort of roundy shape? Something interesting about how I did it, and this is abstraction. This blue one, for argument's sake, goes over the red one. And then the yellow one goes over the red one, but the magenta one goes behind each one of them. So they're actually on different planes. None of them touch each other. So these are the challenges you face. If you get it wrong, it doesn't look right. So the glass of the vase here is above that one. It's quite, yeah, and then this part of the vase here protrudes over there. So there's a lot of these sort of things. So basically, you take something that's real, which was a model, you break it down and you see something else, what it could be, or feel. It's more of a feel thing. And this is what you end up with. Now, when I did this, and this is how other people see your work, I said to my daughter, oh, this is a vase, you know, this might be a vase. She said, Dad, that's very phallic. You do a lot of phallic in your work. I thought, okay. That's what she saw. So probably, possibly, by me explaining this process and what I've done, I may have ruined it for you. You may see something else. So the point of today is more to show you my processes and maybe a way you can look at breaking things down. But not everyone sees what you see. And I suppose that's the whole purpose of these videos, is I'm inviting you into my mind and into the way I think and how things come out. So I hope today was of benefit to you. One other little thing, I painted my signature in orange. It's not a colour I used anywhere else. It's a happy colour. So sometimes you'll see my signature, or most often, it's a colour, and it often represents something to me. Once again, it's in relation to the painting. So I hope I've let you down gently from the wild ride, and next episode I think I'm going to start dealing with this negative space, which is, there's a lot goes on there, and that's where I think I'm going to take you. Thank you, and I hope to see you again.